The Treaty of Versailles has widely been considered as a failure. However, throughout time, the outcomes of the treaty prove that one of the most disputed diplomatic events in history was truly a success.
The Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty signed on June 28, 1919, which brought peace to World War I. It also brought peace to the state of war between Germany and the Allied powers. World War I had left the world in a horrid condition, leaving 11 million dead. The treaty was finally signed after 6 months of negotiation in Paris. The Big Three took major roles in the negotiation process. The Big Three were Woodrow Wilson of America, Georges Clemenceau of France, and David Lloyd George of Britain. Each of the Big Three had their own ideas and goals that they wanted to achieve in this important event.
Georges Clemenceau was the Prime Minister of France. He wanted to protect France, so he weakened Germany to avoid the chances of being invaded again. Also, he wanted Germany to pay for the war debt and punish them for what they had caused. He wanted to make Germany suffer. Georges wanted France to compensate for all the destruction Germany had done to France's homeland during the war. Compensation was negotiated at the peace conference. David Lloyd George was a politician and needed support from the public for success. Britain was against Germany because of many disagreements. In the past, David George made a public image that Germany was definitely going to be punished. He wanted justice but not revenge. He was the compromise between the radical Clemenceau and the conservative Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the U.S. president at the time and wanted to have a safe world. He created the League of Nations, which could make peace without war, and his main goal was to get that passed. The League of Nations was communicated through the publishing of the 14 points. It was a concept to end World War I and ensure peace forever. Some of these points included the elimination of secret diplomacy and the freedom of seas in peace and war. Also, German troops were evacuated from different countries. And lastly, the League of Nations was established.
The League of Nations was created to ensure that the war would not occur again. The League of Nations brought stability to the world. It was created to maintain peace throughout the world and quickly help fix disputes as they occurred. The United States ended up not joining the League of Nations, which was devastating to Wilson.
The Allies and Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles at the Versailles Palace near Paris. The large size of the palace was excellent to accommodate the hundreds of people that were involved in this diplomatic event.
The main purpose of the treaty was for Germany to take responsibility of the war. Germany was blamed for the war and faced a large number of consequences. A lot of land was being taken away from Germany, causing it to lose a lot of colonies. Some of the colonies had lost a valuable amount of resources. They lost a total of 1 million square miles and financially took blame for most of the war. The cost of the war and all expenses would be repaid by Germany and paid to the Allies. A total amount of £6.6 million were to be repaid, and that was very difficult for them.
The war caused the German economy to go down and made the improvement of the economy far more difficult with the high amount of debt. The United States did not sign the treaty because they felt it was unnecessary to do so. The reason we did not sign the treaty was because it would drag us into more European wars, and no one wanted to get involved in that. Since most of America was for isolationism, all attempts at getting them to agree were futile.
Mr. Wilson by all means should go to the peace conference at Versailles. He should be there to help form the League of Nations. At first he was faint-hearted about going, but now is showing indications of departing very soon for the scene of the conference. I hope he goes. Take the 14 peace points, read them over, and then read the amendments put in by the various other nations. After that you will have enough matter for litigation to demand the attention of a League of Nations to determine the right of points in question, said by President William Howard Taft when defending Wilson's participation in the conference. While this point was not a success, it shows that the treaty was by no means a failure, nor is it as harsh as most believe. When compared to similar treaties during that time period, for example, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk of 1918, the Treaty of Versailles does not seem that bad. A much larger amount of land was being taken away from Russia in the Brest-Litovsk than from Germany in the Versailles. Also, the German economy recovered quickly in the second half of the 1920s, as the amount of reparations were reduced throughout the 1920s. The amount of these initial payments was reduced from 269 to 226 billion German gold marks in 1921. This helped reduce the financial burden on Germany.
We do not wish to fight Germany if she is willing to associate herself with us and the other peace-loving nations in covenants of justice and fair dealing. We wish her only to accept a place of equality among the people of the world instead of a place of mastery. President Wilson explained why he should go overseas and get the League of Nations passed.
The Treaty of Versailles was the peace treaty of World War I, and many people blame the treaty itself for the cause of World War II and the Holocaust. Basically, I think one can say the treaty was harsh, but understandable. The Allied governments were under the pressure of their own public, which demanded the Germans to pay for it all. By Wolfgang Mommsen, historian from the University of Dusseldorf.
The Allies, including the United States, Britain, France, and Italy, created what is thought to be one of the worst treaties ever made. However, this treaty is not a failure and was truly a success. People believe that it was a failure because Germany wanted revenge for the harsh punishments they got in the treaty.
Their country was split up greatly, losing all of their colonies, and most importantly, they were blamed for the whole war. Since they were blamed, they had to repay war debts to the victorious countries. Being blamed for the war made the German citizens angered, and they felt that it was unfair and should get punished for the wrongdoings of their own government.
The Germans and their leader Adolf Hitler were angered not at the Versailles Treaty itself, but for the mistakes that their government had made to not only lose World War I, but also become forced to sign the treaty.
Hitler was power-hungry and would do anything for his ideas to control his country. As a soldier in World War I, Hitler was well aware of all the events that took place at Versailles. However, he himself did not lay the blame on the Treaty of Versailles. He was a scapegoat in the Jews of Germany.
Hitler believed and promoted that the Jews were in charge of the German government that had lost the war and were forced to sign the treaty. Blaming the Jews like many did in the past, he rose to power quickly, and his small party grew into the notorious Nazi Party. Hitler cannot be at full blame for the cause, because he would not have risen to power if the citizens of Germany hadn't been so desperate. With a bad economy that was about to get worse because of the Great Depression, citizens were desperate for some hope that Hitler could save them.
How could his followers not see what he was doing? Were they so oblivious not to see that he was ruthlessly murdering many of the people around them, or did they just not care? The citizens who were not Jewish favored the punishments of the Jews. Most of the country was jobless, and with the rapid shrinking number of Jews, the number of jobs greatly increased.
The Treaty of Versailles cannot be considered a huge failure, because of the mistakes of the German citizens and the power of Adolf Hitler.
The Treaty of Versailles was a success because of many different reasons. First and foremost, it brought peace from World War I. This was the worst war that ever occurred at that time, and this treaty brought peace to it.
The Treaty of Versailles was an amazing feat. In 6 months, 3 old men created a new Europe from the ruins of the old. It was not perfect. It could not prevent World War II. Only a crushing defeat for Germany in the first could have done that. Self-determination was restricted to Europe. Yet in a devastated and newly complex continent, no better attempt could have been made. Beset by conflicting demands, the peacemakers left their mark. Look at a map of modern Europe. Not so different from the map of 1920, is it? Not bad for such a despised treaty. Neil Stonehouse. The League of Nations was the most important thing that came out of the treaty. The League of Nations was the foundation of world peace. Its goal was to make sure that peace could not be obtained without war. Though the League itself was not a true success, it led to the beginning of ensuring world peace and led to the creation of the United Nations. Once the people realized that the League of Nations would not work, details surrounding the League were changed to create a better system. First of all, the new system needed to be more organized, and the representation had to be fairer. Voting processes and the power structures were also changed. The new system became the United Nations, which is still the world peace system today. The United Nations had the same goal as the League of Nations, to ensure peace, and without the creation of the League of Nations,
the treaty took away a lot of land, and part of that land recreated the country of Poland. Poland was given much of Germany's land and now had direct access to the Baltic Sea. This was the upside that the treaty accomplished because it created what would become a very powerful country. Poland has been very successful since recreation, and this is proof that the treaty had success. Also, the treaty taught future leaders a very important message not to punish countries too hard. Though the treaty did not lead to the Second World War, Germans were still very upset with the punishments, and future leaders understand that too harsh of a punishment can be bad.
If German citizens were angered from the punishments of the Treaty of Versailles, the Munich Agreement helped recede some of the punishments. The Munich Agreement reformed parts of the Treaty of Versailles. It allowed Germany to rearm and gave back a chunk of land called Sudetenland. World War II itself started because Hitler broke the Munich Agreement by marching into Czechoslovakia and seizing the capital. By breaking this agreement, Germany and Britain could no longer trust each other.
There were bigger factors that led to World War II and the Holocaust than the Treaty of Versailles, and the Treaty of Versailles had many upsides that are overlooked. In conclusion, the treaty was acceptable, thus proving that this diplomatic event was truly a success.
you.